Good morning, family. Tony here once again. Today is Sunday, November the 5th. Hope everyone has been doing well. We're seeing some horrific things happening in Israel right now. We should be praying for them every day, for the soldiers that are fighting to defend Israel's freedom, their existence even, facing their enemies all around them. And now Hezbollah has moved into the battle. We need to be praying for all the innocent civilians, men, women, and children that are caught in the crossfire and that are suffering to this day because of what happened on October 7th. We know that God will deliver Israel in the end, but we also know that they will face a lot of loss before. So pray for them. And if you haven't come to Lord Jesus Christ, do it today. Time is running out. And Jesus could come back any moment. I mean, moments, hours, weeks, definitely not years, probably not months. Probably going to happen very soon, even possibly this month. So the rapture is imminent at this point. Whether you believe in, that there's an appointment or not, we are in the days of the possibility of it happening. It's very probable, which is one of the things I want to talk about in this video. Put your faith and trust in Christ today. Believe the gospel that Jesus was the Son of God, that he died on the cross and was raised on the third day for your sins. And by doing this and putting your faith and trust in him, you're saved and sealed to the day of redemption. And don't waste time, guys, because if you're hearing my voice and you haven't come to Jesus, if you've been riding the fence, you're not sure, whether you want to commit or not. Well, we're not promised another moment in this life. Any moment, you could reach your end, the end of your life. And if you do that without Christ, you're going to stand in judgment of God. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You will be in judgment. And you'll either go to heaven or hell. So you want to make that decision right now and put your faith and trust in him. Because the moment that you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that he died and was raised on the third day, and you put your faith and trust in him for your salvation, you are saved and sealed. And given the Holy Spirit as a down payment or an earnest of our inheritance as eternal children of God. So it's no time like today. This is a saying that everyone says, that today is the day of salvation, is very true, because tomorrow may never come, and yesterday is too late, so it's already gone. So now is the time. Do it today. I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about Israel, what's going on there, obviously, and I want to talk about some things that I've just been rattling around in my brain about miracles, about probabilities and chance. And you all know me. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I don't believe in coincidences. However, I'd be foolish if I believed that it wasn't possible in a world of probabilities full of 8 billion people that things don't happen randomly or by chance, because they do. But when these things that are randomly happening are happening to multitudes of people at the same time, constantly, or to one person constantly, it's not in the realm of chance or probability anymore. It becomes something else. It becomes miraculous. I believe that God orchestrates every nuance of reality, every single little thing. But if you roll dice, it's going to come up on certain numbers, an average amount of times, just like anything else. I mean, things do happen by chance, numbers, license plates, things like that. But when you start adding in the elements of, for instance, the silly little thing that it's not, I don't think it's silly, but maybe a lot of people do, about the little whirlwind that was in my backyard that blew a leaf shaped like a shofar up into the air and through the pickets of my fence and landed on my foot. But not only that, which was crazy enough, and I went and looked out there in the yard, tried to find another leaf that even resembled a shofar, and couldn't find one. And there's probably thousands, maybe millions of leaves. Could not find any. Of course, I didn't spend the entire day, but nevertheless, if there was anywhere near a reasonable amount of leaves out there that was similarly shaped, I would have found something. Nothing. It was nothing even close. So not only that, but I was watching a video about the trumpet blowing and the rapture happening all at the same time. So when you start adding all these things up and you start putting all these things together, the element of chance is eliminated, and the probability becomes so astronomical that, I mean, this can't be chance. I mean, it just can't be. Even if it were, for things to keep happening to me again and again, or to other people the same, or to many groups of people that keep seeing the same numbers again and again and again and again and again. Repo Man 64, 1111 on his phone. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. I mean, how many times does this have to happen before you cannot dismiss this as chance or just probability of numbers? It's beyond that realm. So that's what I'm referring to is the things that just keep happening. And when you start adding other elements into, especially like elements of prophecy in the Bible, when things are happening in such a way. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because of what I'm going to be telling you, and which I've talked about before, about some of the things that's happened to me in the recent 2-3 years that have just exceeded the realm of possibility and chance, and have entered into a realm of miracle. And you don't have to believe what I'm telling you. I mean, there's that. But if you believe what I'm telling you is true, and it is, then this has to be something. There has to be something, and not just me, but many other watchmen, watchwomen, people, Christians, body of Christ. It's happening to everybody, it seems, that believe that these kind of things are happening. I mean, to maybe not everyone, but obviously, but to a lot of us, multitudes of us. So, like for instance, hearing shofars in places where you shouldn't possibly be hearing shofars, things like that. So, and that's what I want to talk about eventually. But before I talk about that, and believe me, I'm getting to a point here. I want to give you a couple of examples. Now, I have a series of videos in my playlist called I Saw a Miracle, and I've included a couple of the... Actually, the two that I'm going to give you examples are in there if you wanted to check it out. You just click on my YouTube channel, click on the icon, my YouTube channel pop up, click on videos, not videos, but playlist. There's like a little, place at the top where you got videos and live stream, and which I've never done live. I don't do live, but live stream or playlist or community or all that. So all that, just click on playlist and click on I Saw a Miracle, and you can find this and more. And I haven't included all the miracles I've seen in my life, only a handful. But it's an example that I've seen some things in my life. One of the things that happened to me was, try to guess what year it was. It's going to be hard. My daughter is... she's 27 now, 27 years old. And when she was 2, this is when this happened. So 1997-ish. I think it was actually 1997 in the winter. Or maybe 98 in the winter, early 1998. But anyways, I was taking her to daycare. She was 2, in a little small black Nissan pickup truck, going down a back road. And it was the coldest day of the year. They had just announced it on the radio. This is the coldest day of the year. It's 14 degrees. No sooner than they had said that. 14 degrees. That's like the last thing I heard before this happened. I see a car up ahead, and they're turning left. They're stopped, but their lights were frosted over so badly. Their whole car was frosted over. And the lights was frosted over so badly, I couldn't tell that their turn signal on or their brake lights was on. And, till I was literally... had to slam on my brakes because it was kind of on a long curve, and I was probably going 45, 50 mile an hour. And so by the time I realized it and I hit my brakes, they were turning left. The flashers were on. I hit my brakes and I didn't have any. And I don't know how to explain this unless it's happened to you before. It's weird, but when I hit the brakes, not only did the brakes not work, but that truck just started going into the left lane and I couldn't stop it. It's like everything was frozen and cold. I had very little control. I was probably going way faster than I should have been that morning. The road seemed fine, but evidently they were, it was cold enough to where whatever was on the road was like a very small, thin sheet of ice, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't wet, but nevertheless, I was lost control. And as I started to drift into the oncoming lane, it was just 2 lanes. It was in the country, like I said, but there's the curve went for about a mile. I mean, it was a long, gradual curve. On both sides of the road was little cedar trees and a fence where there's pastures on either side, pastures for the cows, So, I mean, there wasn't no driveways except for that one house where that car in front of me was turning. And there's a big black sedan coming right towards us. And I'm headed right for it. I mean, I couldn't control the car. It was just doing its own thing. It was like, or the little truck. What, much more than a car. If some cars are bigger than that truck was. It's so small, a little Nissan. But I had no control. And as I'm heading towards that thing, I'm thinking to myself, and my mind's going 90 miles an hour, this is it. We're going to hit head on. That car was probably going as fast as I was coming the other way. And it was a big black car. I turned, the only thing I could think to do was turn the steering wheel as hard as I could to the right. And I closed my eyes. I said, oh, God. And I'm thinking in that way that if the car hits me broadside, that maybe my daughter would survive it. I see the woman. It was a woman driving the black car, and it was coming at us. And I seen her face through her windshield. That's how close we were when I closed my eyes. And literally saw the terror on her face, as probably was on mine at that moment. But when I closed my eyes and I said, oh God, and I say that a lot of times when things happen, I guess it's just, I don't know if it's instinct or if I'm, but of course I'm calling out to God, because that's it. I mean, there's nothing else I can do. It's completely out of my hands now. So I closed my eyes, and this is the account, and this is the best that I can explain what happened, because I really don't know. This was very, very, it was very crazy what happened. I felt the little truck turn completely around, facing the other direction. But as it did it, it's hard to explain, but the wheels were skirting against the ground like, I mean, it don't really make sense when you think about laws of inertia and movement stuff, how this happened. But by the time I got turned, by the time I saw that lady in the car, I could see the other car just beside of her. So in other words, I was so close to both of those vehicles, the black car that was coming at me and the car that was stopped to turn left, that I should have hit one of them. I mean, there's no way I could have avoided it. I was too close at that point. When I closed my eyes, something happened. Like I said, the little truck, immediately just flipped around and skirted across the street. Boom, into the ditch. It was just quick, it wasn't like like when you was about to get into a crash. It just skirted, it went really loud. I remember that. Boom. And when it hit the ditch, it wasn't, like a crash. It was more like a thud. It just like, thump, it hit the ditch. It pinned me into the car against the little cedar trees, and it smashed the front end of the car just enough to where the radiator fan blade or whatever wouldn't work. I mean, I couldn't crank it back up because I bound up the radiator or something in the fan blade and nothing would turn. So immediately upon facing the other direction, landing in a ditch, what happened in a second, it happened so fast. I had opened my eyes by now, and I'm looking ahead, and I don't see the black car. So as I hit the ditch, I turned to the right to see if it had stopped. But it couldn't have stopped. That's what I'm saying. It was going too fast, and I knew that. But I had to look. The car that was turning left was sitting there. The guy was getting out of the car. That black car was gone. And I could see, like I said, that was about a mile, maybe a half a mile to a mile gradual curve that you could see way on up the road. And there wasn't nowhere for the car to turn. Matter of fact, we would make sure that she wasn't in a ditch somewhere or flipped over the fence, which would have been impossible with all the trees there. But anyways, just what we were looking to see if maybe there was some kind of logical explanation as to what happened to her. Anyways, but before that, the guy got out of the car and he's yelling, "Is everybody okay?" And I'm trying to get out of my daughter's side and get her unbuckled. She's screaming and crying, and she's not hurt. Nobody got hurt. It wasn't even that kind of an accident. I mean, we did hit the ditch, but it wasn't hard enough for anybody to get hurt. the guy gets out of the car and he's screaming, "Is everybody okay?" And I told him, I said, did you see that big black car? He explained that he was waiting for a big black car to pass so that he could turn around. His windows were frosted over, and he didn't have no defrost. So he said he was having a hard time seeing. He didn't want to drive into Charlotte that way. It was too dangerous. He was going to turn around and go back home and deal with it or whatever. But he says, I heard, this is what he said. I mean, this is like verbatim. I heard twisting metal and crashing. He said, I thought that somebody was dead. And I said, well, that's not what I heard, and that's not what happened. I said, but what I don't understand is where that big black car went. He said, no, it doesn't make any sense. He said, I saw them pass too. They should be, if you should have been able to see them when you turned around, if you flipped around that fast, because it would have taken them a while to get out of sight. I mean, they would have really had to have been going 100 miles an hour, and that don't even make sense. I mean, they would have had to slow down for me and then picked up speed again, all within a split second. Nothing makes any sense. So somehow that car vanished. Somehow that car passed over us. All right, and I'm going to get to why I said that in a minute. So this guy, it's very odd. He asked me if I needed a ride, because he could tell that there wasn't no driving the car. Even if I could have cranked it up, I couldn't have got it out of the ditch. It was like almost on its side. He asked where I lived. I told him where. He says, I got to go that way. He said, I can take y'all back home. Because, it was cold. And, my daughter was 2. She was just a little girl. So he took us back home. Now, it was a miracle, okay? I mean, I did not doubt that it was a miracle in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what happened to the car. In my mind, it was put somewhere else by God. Because that's the only explanation that makes any sense, that car was moved somewhere else. It's almost like God bent reality to save us, which I couldn't understand why. I'm not important enough for God to do that for. It goes through people's minds. I'm like, why would he do that for me? I don't deserve that. But nevertheless, I thanked him for it. Years later, I got interested in Jewish customs and was looking, like everybody else did, around, I don't know, say 2014, 2015. Everybody was started looking into Jewish holidays after, it was before the Revelation 12 sign, but it was just like this movement where everybody was looking into Jewish customs and the months, the moeds and all, and it got really popular on the internet. So that's what I was doing, and I was learning some of the Hebrew language. I learned about the months, Nissan and other months and stuff, and there was some other things that happened. I was actually talking to my neighbor about he was talking about these motorcycles and this accident, which brought that accident to my mind, which led me, one thought led to another when I put it all together. I was outside in the backyard talking to my neighbor when I put all the pieces together. And I said, wait a minute. Passover happens in the month of Nissan. Passover is when the angel of death passed over the Hebrew people that had the blood on their doorpost. And I'm like, it was on Nissan 14. And that's when it all came back. I mean, just like God brought it all back to my memory. I was in a Nissan pickup truck. They had just announced it was 14 degrees on the radio. The car that was coming at me was a big black car, which symbolizes like death, like the angel of death coming at us. And my unable to do anything about it was the human condition, that we have no control, that death has come for us, and that without God's intervention, everyone is going to die, and spiritually too, because if they don't accept Christ, without God intervening, we would all just perish. But because of the blood of Christ, the blood of the doorpost, which is over our hearts in this case, death passes over us. And that's what literally happened. And that's why I said earlier that car seemed to have passed over us. It seemed like the whole situation passed over us. We should have been killed. If not killed, a calamity, I mean, a very devastating accident that would have probably left one of us in a coma, if not both of us, and one of us dead at least, injured very severely, as car crashes typically do at that speed, 45 and above. So that was amazing. I mean, the chances of the miracles that happened initially was beyond chance enough. I mean, beyond the probability of chance already, without the adding of Passover in the Nissan, being in a Nissan truck. And I know they're not spelled the same, guys, but That's irrelevant. In fact, I was in a Nissan truck. It was 14 degrees. It all points to the Passover, and God wanted me to see that. It's almost like this. It's almost like He made this happen so that I would understand it. So He would give me like a visual, a physical representation of an invisible idea of the rapture. I mean, not the rapture, but of the Passover and what it means. That death literally passes over us when we accept Christ, and our spirit is redeemed and saved from imminent death or certain death. Certain spiritual death, judgment, and all that. So that was one example. I'm going to give you one more. And both of these that I'm giving you are in my miracle, I Saw a Miracle series in the playlist if you'd like to see the entirety. But I pretty much told that whole story, so you wouldn't need to see it again unless you wanted to. I mean, there's maybe some details I left out. This one here is really quick. My brother, my oldest brother, Jack, he was kind of the doubting Thomas of the family. At least that's what he appeared to be to me. Some of my other family members said he got saved when he was real young, and he just liked to get my goat, get me upset, get me riled up. Not upset, but, get me, trying to argue the point when he liked to debate. But I don't see it that way at all. Just because, as a Christian, we are supposed to try the spirits, and he did not seem like a person who had really truly been saved or truly put their faith in Christ. And I hope to God that he did, because I had many, many conversations with him throughout the years. Just about every week we go to his house, we talk about it. I mean, I tried so hard to get him to come to Christ. And maybe he did at the last minute before he passed. I don't know. But he tells me stuff like this. He says, I'm a person who's got to see it to believe it. I got to put my hands on it. I got to touch it. I got to feel it. I have to see, doubting Thomas. Like, literally, I got to put my hands in his scars and finger in his side before I'll believe that Jesus was raised. It's that kind of an attitude. But something happened, and it was with me. It could have been with anybody, but God had this happen through me, and that's why I believe, for one, that it was a miracle, because I had been trying to get to him for so many years and praying that God would help me. He had never seen any kind of miracles. Now, I've seen so many now, I've lost count, but some people say they don't ever see miracles. It's beyond me that in this life, with all the craziness, that everybody hasn't seen some kind of a miracle by now, but he swears that he never saw a miracle until this event. When he had moved to Myrtle Beach, he was at a hotel. When I say at a hotel, it was one of the cheaper hotels. It was the kind of hotel where you got to call the front office and have them patch you to the room that you want to talk to. You can't just call directly to the room. You can't do it. It is physically impossible to call the room. It's the phones aren't wired that way. They're wired up to the front desk. The front desk has to patch you in. I don't even know if you can dial out on the phones. I guess you can. But I think you have to dial the front office, and I don't even know how they have to patch you through to a line. I don't even know how that works. But I just know you cannot call his room. Now, some hotels, you can get the phone numbers and you can call the rooms, but I guess, I'm assuming. I don't even know. I haven't been to that many hotels in my life, to be honest. Not that I don't use their phone anyways when I do. We've been to the beach a few times, Anyways, I'm living in South Carolina. Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, but I'm living upstate. I'm living in York, South Carolina, York County. So one night I come home and I got this little cheap, best as I can describe it, is this really, really cheap answering machine. It has like 3 functions. You can put a message on it, and you can, when the phone, when somebody calls, it'll answer with that message, and it gives them like a 30 seconds to give a message, and then it shuts itself off. I think that's about it. If I'm remembering correctly, that's only functions it had. You could put a little short message on. Oh, it had its own built-in message, I think, and then you could put your own message on there, and then it would let somebody record a 30-second answer, and that was it. So one night, I had the answering machine on. Me and my wife we went out. I want to say we were out. We were shopping for gifts, but I'm pretty sure it was warm. I was at the beach. It could have been in the wintertime. It could have been Christmas shopping. I'm not really sure. Honestly, I can't remember what time of the year it was at this point. But we were out shopping, either for birthday present for somebody, or we was out buying Christmas gifts. But anyways, I know we went out. I think we went out to eat. We come home. We was living in an apartment, and we were upstairs. I came home and went upstairs, and I believe we were upstairs. Oh my gosh. Actually, I lived in two different apartments. Well, regardless, whichever it was upstairs or not, I went to my apartment. And to the bedroom is where I had my bedroom is where I had my answer machine hooked to the phone. And I went in there and it was flashing. You know, that there was one message. That was the other feature, that it would flash at how many messages you had. It would flash at 1 or 2 or 3. And I think it would hold up to 10 messages. Maybe more. I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure it held up to at least 10. I never would have gotten that many messages. I never got phone calls. But it was flashing a 1. I pressed the button. And so my wife had come in, was not in the room at the first time, but she came in after and I showed it to her. But I pressed the button and what I heard was a phone ringing, like I just called somebody on the phone. You know how they do, the older phones, how they sound when the thing. Anyways, my brother answers the phone. I hear him clearly say, hello, 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 and then click. He hangs up. And it immediately hit me that, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. It immediately started hitting, my mind started clicking, the gears started grinding and, smoke started coming out my ears. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, it hit me that, wait a minute, this ain't right. First of all, Jack lives at a hotel where he can't get phone calls directly to his room. And all this hit my mind all of a sudden. Second, my answering machine would have had to call him because I wasn't even at home and there wasn't nobody else that had any access to my house, to my apartment but me and my wife. Possibly the apartment management, but that wouldn't make sense. That they would have been in my apartment calling my brother at the beach at a hotel and calling directly to his room. See, that don't even make sense. So I ruled that out. That's not possible. The only thing that would be possible is somehow my answer machine called him, which it didn't have that function. It didn't have a function to do that. But even if it had called him, it would have had to have called the hotel office. It was a motel. I think I've been saying hotel, but I mean motel. It was the single level building, the cheap little motels. It would have had to have called directly, to the office and been patched over. And in the case it was patched over, he would have picked up the phone. But the thing is, it was dead air. How does my answer machine call the office, tell them what room to send it to? You see what I'm saying? That's impossible. And my brother, when I called him after, and I said, Jack, something weird just happened. I told him what was on my answer machine. He says, now this evidently was about 30 minutes after, maybe an hour after it happened, when I called him, by the time I called him. And the answer machine event must have happened 30 minutes or so after, had passed, So, I got home probably 30 minutes after he talked he answered the phone. If that makes sense. So he's like, Tony, hold on a minute. He said, what do you mean you wasn't home? But it was on your answer machine that somebody called me. He says, Tony, he's like, you could tell he's like frustrated, just like I was. He's like, hold on a minute. He says, how does your answer machine call my motel room without calling the office? He says, that don't make any sense. He said, somebody had to have called the office and patched it over to my room. I said, well, Jack, there ain't nobody here that's even living here in this county that would know you and know me and come in my house and and know where you was at. I said, that don't even make sense either. He says, no, that's impossible too. So he realizes immediately that this is an impossibility. But this ain't where the story gets interesting. We could have said, well, I don't know, it's a mystery, and just went on with our lives. But Jack said on his end, something really amazing happened. And this is where it becomes a miracle. This is where I believe it goes beyond the realm of chance and probabilities. This is where it enters the realm of miracle, that God had intervened in this. Okay? Jack said that when the phone rang and he answered it and nobody was there, his kids were younger then. They were all teenagers. He said he thought it was one of his kids trying to come. They didn't go to the beach with him. They were still living with their mom. He was remarried, so they were still living with their mom back in North Carolina. He thought maybe one of them was trying to reach him at the beach, right? So he said, I was about to leave and go to the store. He said, I was going to walk. He says, because his wife or his new wife or whatever had the car and she was working. She was at work. It was at nighttime. And he worked the day, she worked the night, and they used the same car. So he said he was about to walk down. He says about a 10-minute walk to the store. He was about to walk down the store, just get out of the motel, get some fresh air or whatever. He says that the phone rang and stopped him from leaving. And when he thought about his kids, it might have been one of them trying to call, because he said he felt like something may have happened and they're trying to reach him. He wouldn't leave then. He decided not to leave to go to the store. He said about 10 minutes after he made the decision not to walk to the store, he started hearing sirens everywhere. Sirens going off, police cars, ambulances. There was a fire truck. I don't know if there's a fire truck. I honestly don't know if there's a fire truck, but I know that he said there was police and there were ambulances. So he went outside and saw them. They were just everywhere. And then he had talked to somebody outside. He was hanging out outside just watching, these going, but wondering what was going on down there. And somebody, I guess, that lived near him, came outside or something. He's like, I wonder what's going on down. He says, you didn't hear? He says, hear what? He says, somebody went down there and tried to rob that store, the one that he was about to go to, with a gun. And somebody had gotten shot down there. So basically, if Jack had left to go to the store when he originally planned to go, it would have put him, this is what he explained to me, he said, that would have put me right in the middle of this person robbing the store with a gun. He says, but because what you say with your answering machine or whatever, however it did it, called my motel and got me on the phone, got me worried about the kids, I decided not to go. He says, which kept me safe from anything that happened down there. He said, Tony, this is a miracle. So to make a long story short, guys, and I want to move on here. He said, that's the only miracle that he's ever witnessed. He said, that's the only miracle that he's ever seen. That he would always, when we would talk about miracles, he said, well, I got to see it to believe it. He said, but the only thing that's ever happened to me was he started talking about an answer machine thing. That really was, I guess, the only miracle that he had ever seen, but it was a miracle. But why me? It's almost like God was giving him a miracle so that he would, so he would have that. That way he's got to see it to believe it thing, So he's seen a miracle. And it came from my phone because I'm the one that's always trying to get him to come to Christ. So I believe that's why God used me, because he knew it would have more of an impact coming from me than if it were just some random phone call. Because if it was, then he would never talk to nobody. You see what I'm saying? It had to be somebody that knew him to be able to communicate this whole thing to show that there was some kind of intervention, that it just it didn't just randomly happen. You see what I mean? Which leads me to this, guys. Again, I don't believe in coincidences. But when I say that, I'm not saying that numbers can't randomly appear. And I'm not even saying I don't believe in frequency bias. When you're looking for certain numbers, these numbers are going to pop up, especially if it's only three in a row, guys. They're going to pop up. Now, if you see a license plate in a day, even if you see 2 or 3 in a week, there's no reason to think that that's a message from God necessarily. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be, but there's no reason to think that that's a message from God necessarily. But when you start seeing it 2 or 3 times a day and 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, when you start seeing it, not only you're having it, but countless other people. It's not even countless other people. It's a handful, but it's a lot of people. I've got like 11,500 subscribers, and I get, multiple messages just about every video telling me that they've seen these reoccurring numbers. So, all the time, like Repo Man 64 says he sees 1111 on the phone constantly. He says it just keeps happening. How many times does it have to happen before it leaves the realm of probability and chance? like I said, I don't believe anything's a coincidence. And when I say that, I believe that there's a reason for everything. I don't believe that, I don't believe that things that happen in this world that move the world, that have impact on the world, happen by chance, that God's orchestrating it. But as far as randomness goes, I mean, there's randomness in everything. You could roll dice and get, 3 sixes, 3 fives, 3 threes, 3 fours, 3 whatever in a row several times. That doesn't mean that you're getting a message from God necessarily, does it? I mean, because it can happen. I mean, we play Ginch, or we got Farkle now. It's actually Farkle's like in a little container, but it's basically Ginch. It's just a dice game where you got 5 dice, you roll a dice. And I mean, I've seen the numbers pop up. I mean, I've seen 5 fives, 5 sixes, 5 fours, 5 ones. I mean, it does happen, as the odds are great against getting all ones or getting all fives, but it happens, it does happen, and it happens frequently. It's not that uncommon, but the odds of it is pretty high. So things happen. But again, guys, when I tell you guys these things that are happening to me, it's like they're happening constantly. I mean, I can't escape it. I'm not looking for it. I'm not like scanning the tags to see if these, Now, if I were doing that, I mean, the odds are I'm going to see 333 or 777 on a regular basis. It's just the randomness of the fact that I just happened to look over. There's a tag that's got those numbers on it. And that happens all the time. Or there's a sign that's got certain numbers or things on it, or I'll get a new job and it's numbers the way they happen, like the dot doors at my work, 21, 22, 23, and then there's only 30 in the whole place. And it's just the way it's set, things are set up. It's just, it's uncanny. It's beyond the realm of chance that the way these numbers are falling all the time. All the time. So that brings me to the meat of this whole video, and I hope you guys are still listening, because this is really what I was leading up to. Okay, because this is kind of important. First of all, let's start with this. We talked about this last year. Last year, on November the 11th, which is 11/11, it marked the anniversary of the flood starting, of the fountains of the deep being broke up, which was Cheshvan, on the Jewish calendar was Cheshvan 17. Or Cheshvan 17. The flood lasted for 40 days and 40 nights. But after 1 year and 10 days, on the 27th day of the month of Cheshvan, or the second month, basically. Cheshvan is the second month. On the second month, the waters of the deep were dried up. The dry land appeared. And Noah was able to leave the ark. Actually was 1 year and 10 days later. Now, last year on 11/11, November 11th, it was Cheshvan 17, the anniversary of the flood starting. This year on November 11th is the anniversary, and we talked about it last year. So I mean, this ain't new news. We knew about this last year, that this year on November 11th would mark the end of the flood and the drying up of the ground, where the waters assuaged and the ground dried up. And Noah was able to leave the ark, okay, on 11/11. This is markers. This is markers, okay? This is bookends. This 11/11 bookend thing it goes deeper, but just suffice to say this. 1 year span, we've seen the anniversary of the beginning and the ending of the flood in the past year. I'm thinking about, this is what I'm thinking about. Could we have been seeing some sort of shadow and type, some sort of dress rehearsal, if you will, to the birthing pains of the church, the beginnings of sorrows? Because within that time frame of last year and this year, wars and rumors of wars, nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, stars falling from heaven, powers of the heavens shaken, sun and moon eclipsing, and signs of the sun and the moon and the stars. Distress of nations with perplexity, earthquakes, uncanny amounts of earthquakes, and devastating ones at that. Turkey. Think about the earthquakes. Think about all this happened within the past year. Now, could this year be marking the beginning of sorrows for the church, our beginning of sorrows of the tribulation, rather, but basically marking what Jesus was referring to when he said, these are the beginnings of sorrows. And he said, when you see these things beginning to happen, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. Could we be there? Could we be right there where Jesus says, when you see these things, have we seen them this whole past year? In the past 3 years, we've seen all this stuff coming to happen. It's happened. It's been rising. Things have been increasing, but the past year has been unprecedented. In fact, we were so sure last year the rapture was going to happen because so many things was ramped up. But here we go. From 2022 to 2023, it's been insane. From last November to this November, the amount of things that's happened is absolutely insane. Off the charts. Craziness. Everywhere. Everything that the Bible says was going to happen has happened. Now, the only thing that I cannot... I've seen the stars fall in Nevada with the UFO that came down. Mr. MBB 333. You should see some of the videos he's recently put out of some kind of a thing came down. These people filmed it. It almost looked like a meteor, but it was coming down like this at an angle. Went behind the trees, and all of a sudden, boom! And even the camera shook. Everything shook. It even shook MB 333's cam or wherever he was watching it. Video from it was so powerful. Things are falling from the heavens. The stars are beginning to fall, but everything is just beginning. We know in the tribulation it's going to be a whole lot worse, but it's beginning. All these things. Now, the only things, like I said, I cannot reconcile or figure out. Rather, I shouldn't say reconcile because I can reconcile it. The only thing I can figure out is that where it says, "Men's hearts shall fail them for looking after those things coming on the earth." Could that just be like a figure of speech saying like, it's going to scare people to death, the things that are happening? Because if that's what it's saying, that's happening. Because it is scaring people to death. People don't know what to do or where to go. They're turning to God, which is good. Some of them are just like freaking out. People are going crazy. They're like, what's happening? Is this the end of the world? So many hits on YouTube and Google about the end of the world, end times, religion, apocalypse, all these things. It's unprecedented. Or could it literally mean that people's hearts will fail them when they see the devil and his angels coming down? Could that be the last thing we see before we go up? That's a possibility. So I'm not saying that everything is completely said has been done, in the Olivet Discourse and all that. But what I am saying is I believe that 11/11 this year is a marker, a bookend marker, with that flood date in there, right? That year and 10 days, because on 11/11 this year will be the second month, 27th day, the 27th day. So from the 17th of Cheshvan to the 27th of Cheshvan, 1 year later is a year and 10 days. For us, marks the year and 10 days that the earth, what I'm saying. Where in the Bible it was a year and 10 days. For us, it was a year, but it marked the beginning and ending of the flood. So it worked out. And, okay, if that's not enough, since the before the eclipse, since October 7th, remember I told you about my shofars, how they seem to be bookmarking, pointing to October 7th. Then you got Dana Coverstone where he saw the calendars. He saw October, a finger starts tapping on the October like 3 times. And I think he dreamed this, and if I'm not mistaken, in 2020, so that makes it 3 years. So this has happened in 3 years, just like my shofars would have been a 3-year warning. He dreams that, and then he said when the calendar goes to November, a fist balls up and boom, he hits it and it busted the calendar into pieces. Look here, look where we're at. October 7th, this all started with Israel. And then from that, you go to the solar eclipse, the Ring of Fire eclipse the very next week, on Saturday, both on Saturdays, on Sabbaths. And every Sabbath since then, every seventh day, every Saturday since then, something major has happened. Even yesterday, Hezbollah, 175,000 soldiers or Hezbollah, whatever you call them, terrorists or whatever, surrounds Israel or prepares to attack. Yesterday. Okay. This is getting kind of crazy, right? My son had that dream, my oldest son, TJ. He had a dream about an airplane, but he said the airplane, it was like the power had went off because the airplane didn't have no power. It didn't have no lights in it, but there was candles on the wings flying towards a solar ring of fire eclipse. And on the ground was this big party in this field with a bunch of like teenagers. He said they were young men and women. out partying. He said in the dream they had on party masks and party clothes, some kind. So he believed it was Halloween. He lived in a place where it was like a party city. It was in University City, a place where there's a lot of teenagers, and they do parties during the month of October for Halloween and stuff in fields. And he said, but it was electronic music. It was a music festival. They had electronic music, a DJ, and they were all partying. The plane with the candles on the wings was flying towards the eclipse. Okay, the eclipse happened October the 14th. So remember that. This plane was flying towards the eclipse. Just think about that in a prophetic sense. It's going towards it. In other words, it's in the past. It's in the past heading towards the future where there will be a ring of fire eclipse right in his scene, in his point of view. What happened at the music festival in Israel? They came over the fence with gliders. Here's the craziest part. Me and TJ even talked about this. Before any of this ever happened, this was when he dreamed this thing. I think it was like 2 years ago, or at least a year ago. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was a long time ago. He told me about this. And I think I've mentioned it quite a few times on here. Even we talked about that plane with the candles on the wings could be representing some kind of stealthy attack. No, it wasn't candles. I always say candles, but he corrected me. It was flares. It was flares, not candles. Nevertheless, it's fire. It's not lights. It's actually fire. It's just, elemental, energy. Flying towards the eclipse. We said it could be some kind of stealthy attack that's going to happen sometime in the future. We didn't ever even thought about Israel. It never even crossed our mind it could be Israel at all. But it's flying towards you as though it's something that happens right before the eclipse. This plane with the flares. They came over the fence in Gaza or whatever to that music festival on gliders. Gliders have wings. It was a stealthy attack over the fence. A week before the solar ring of fire eclipse. People was in a field, he said, screaming. This is his dream still. This is going back to his dream. He said he heard people screaming. The accounts of that party from the actual survivors that were there said that they heard gunshots and people screaming. He said also in the dream, he saw people vanishing with a puff of black smoke. He described it as there's this character, it's called Nightcrawler on X-Men, that he's got all these symbols and stuff all over. It's creepy. He showed me this creepy, like satanic looking thing. It looked like a demon. But anyways, whenever he would transport, he was a transporter. Whenever he would transport somebody, they would both disappear in a puff of like wispy black smoke. He said that's what he saw. And people just disappearing and screaming. What did Hamas do when they came across the fence? They started killing people and kidnapping people. They kidnapped they got hostages. Over 100 some odd hostages. They were taking people. He had a premonition of what was going to happen in Israel. I truly believe. But he did not know what he was looking at. Right? I mean, it makes perfect sense. Tyler had a similar dream. But his dream was a little bit different in that it was more like the tribulation. Because he said he saw he saw a car going down the street. I think he said it was an earthquake or something happened or a bomb exploded and the hubcap came off of somebody's tire and it just decapitated somebody standing nearby. And then he saw this person who was, as he described it, was like looked kind of like he described Jared Kushner because at the time he had the dream, we were talking of possible candidates for the Antichrist. Jared Kushner name came up because of the Accords and all that. Because of the Abrahamic Accords. So that must have been the face he put on the Antichrist in his dream. Unless he is. Well, let's don't even go there, right? I don't even want to know who the Antichrist is. But anyways, but he said that this figure that looked like him was supposed to be the Antichrist. He decapitated himself like with his hand, and his head just pops off, and another head grows up in its place. Which is really ironic because the Antichrist figure, it said that there was a head that was wounded to death but yet revived. So that was really odd. But he had a dream that's similar because he was talking about the same kind of stuff that people were screaming and something about, I'm not sure if he said they were disappearing. I have to get the account from Ty. I can't remember his dream, but he was explaining it to me the other day. It was similar in some ways. But here's what's interesting here. In 2020, when I heard those shofars, and this is why I'm talking about chants and miracles and things. Okay, I know, now I can't prove this to anybody else because nobody heard it but me, evidently, so I don't have any witnesses. I didn't record it. So, I mean, you just got to take me on my word or not, and that's fine. I get it. But I'm telling you the truth, so, to believe it, take it with a grain of salt. It doesn't really matter, but, the truth is truth. It really happened. I hear these shofars in a place where you can't even get down there to play shofars. But the shofars were the kind of shofar that I have, the kind that I bought so that I could play on here, which I'm not doing this morning because those two people still sleep. But the point is, Israel, when they had watchers on the wall, they used these small shofars. Those were warning shofars, warning that danger was coming. The big could do shofars like Aaron and John Boucher and all those play. Those are more celebratory, they're more like coronation trumpets or, whenever there was a celebration coming. I mean, I guess they could be used for a warning, but they have a different kind of sound. They have a more happy, like the last trumpet kind of sound, Jesus here. But that other trumpet, the one like I got, has a very whiny, moany, it has more of an ominous sound to it, just like a woo. It's got that sound that you just feel like you shouldn't be hearing it. And if you are, something's bad is about to happen. That kind of a sound. That's what I heard. And September the 7th in 2020, which was Labor Day, connecting to all this birthing stuff, the baby's gone, the ring of fire eclipse, all this, all connected. It's Labor Day. This is God. And I'm telling you, this is God. On the 7th day. Now, one thing interesting before I go any further with that. 2023, add the numbers up from left to right. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 is 7. That's kind of strange. It's just kind of interesting. But I heard on the 7th of September, and then I heard another one on the 7th of November. I did not hear one in October the 7th, which I was outside listening and hoping to hear something. But the attack on Israel happened 3 years later on October 7th. So could it have been highlighting October 7th, right? Here's the thing. There was 2 shofars because it was on 2 different days. So there was 2 shofars, 2 different days, and they played 2 different sounds. They only played 2 sounds. Now, if you were on the wall in Israel and you knew that the sword was coming, but they were maybe 100 miles out, but you just got word, you start blowing the shofar, you would sound something like this. Doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. However, if the people were on horseback entering into the field of view of that person that's watching on the wall, it would be a different sound. It would be more to it. It wouldn't just be what I just did. It would be do-do, 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 do-do. In other words, those staccato blast is a warning of immediacy, of urgency. Go, 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 get out, get out, get out, run for your life. I did not hear that. 2 shofars, 2 different sounds. A stretch of 3 months, September, October, November. Even though I didn't hear nothing in October, there was a stretch of 3 months. There was 3 blasts that I heard. There was the first blast, of course. It's just kind of like to get your attention. There was 3 blasts in September. I didn't hear nothing in October. But in November, I heard 3 times 3 blasts. So think about David Coverstone. October, point. And then November, bam. In November, I heard. In other words, it is coming. There's a sword coming, but to what land is the sword coming? I assumed it was here. But because it's Jewish shofars, and it's in a Jewish customary way, wouldn't it make more sense that I was being given a warning of Israel? And maybe not because I could do anything about it or even warn anyone because I didn't know that's what it was for, but rather a time marker as to what we should be looking for as the church right before Jesus comes back. The urgency to watch and be ready and aware. Not an urgency to run for your life, but an urgency of paying attention. Emphasis on 3 blasts. Could that have been an emphasis on 3 years from now? From then? Because November the 7th will be 3 years. This year. 2 different blasts. 2 different shofars. I heard it on 2 different days. A stretch of 3 months. 3 blasts each time. Only 3 and then 3 times 3. 2s and 3s. 2023. It's possible. I know, guys, this is all just speculation. I know that. But it certainly seems to be pointing to something here. You know, Aaron with got a video out which really interests me, showing the Hebrew language. Now, here's one thing we know about languages. Everything that is west of Israel is written from left to right. And everything that is east of Israel is written from right to left. Everything points to Israel. There's some kind of a Bible code where I can't remember, so I don't want to quote it, but there's something about in the original Hebrew text, the first letters of the first like 5 words in the first couple books is like, I want to say it's either God's name or it's the Torah. I think it's Yahweh. Anyways, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh or whatever. But anyways, what was interesting was that in the first 2 books, it spelled like the letters of the first few words are spelled from left to right. Then when you get to the middle book, I think it's Leviticus or Numbers or what, I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But the middle book, because there's 5 books of the Torah originally, the 2 first ones, the one in the middle, then the 2 last ones. And the one in the middle had it was different. It had either God's name or Torah, whatever was opposite of what I just said. But then the last 2 was the same ones that was at the first 2, only spelled in reverse. In other words, so after the first 5 letters was that same word spelled backwards in Hebrew. Everything was pointing to Yahweh or pointing to the Torah. And I'm messing the story all up because I don't have time to research it. I want to get this video out. But you can go look it up. There's something to that effect. So anyways, this is where I'm getting at anyways. When Aaron with God a minute showed the Hebrew language, the Hebrew alphabet, there's 22 letters. So if you just put it down from if you just write it out left to right, it doesn't matter which way, it's going to come out the same. But if you write it from left to right, like you would write anything else, the first 11 letters, that letter, this number 11 going from left to right would be Kaf. Kaf represents the palm of the hand. It has a numerical value of 20. Then if you go from right to left to the 11th letter, it's Lamed. Lamed is the shepherd's staff. The numerical value is 30. So you put those 2 numbers together at 1111. So it's 11 from the left to right, 11 from right to left is 1111. This is what this whole video is talking about, 1111. The numerical value is 2030. What happens if you got a palm of the hand and a shepherd's staff? You put the shepherd's staff in the hand of the shepherd. 2030 is when Jesus is supposed to return. Now the shepherd's staff is in the shepherd's hand, and he begins to rule and reign over the sheep. Interesting, huh? That's crazy. And of course, he also showed that how every other, like if you start from the middle and you make every letter, you add the sum of every letter in its numerical value, like it's like a little, like a little rainbow or whatever, a little half circle. The 2 middle ones would equal 23 or whatever. Going in sequence, in sequence. Everything equals 23. You got to go find God on his channel and just go look it up. You have to look up his videos and find it. But the whole alphabet equals 23. Every single corresponding letter added together equals 23. 2023, guys. This is the year. I really believe that. Psalm 83 is happening right in front of our eyes. All the players in Psalm 83 are there. And it's also looking like with Hezbollah and 175,000 troops and all the other people that are joining into the battle and the whole world turning on Israel, all these nations. And I just saw a big march in Texas, a big march in New York City of these people that are supporting Palestine and saying that Israel, freedom to Palestine, death to Israel, basically, that without saying it, but it's very evident that they want Israel wiped off the map. They believe this is an illegal occupation and that Israel has no right to be there and they need to be annihilated. And this is happening all over the world. And so we see the enemies of Israel encamped around them. This was a part of a prophecy. When you see the armies encompassing Israel, know that the desolation there is nigh or whatever. But, I think that's also talking about the abomination of desolation. But what we're seeing here is Psalm 83. All their enemies are surrounding them. They're going to be on the brink of destruction when God miraculously saves them from this war and defeats their enemies. The movie Left Behind with Kirk Cameron. If you guys have seen that, if you're of the age that you would have seen that when you were younger, that's the way that story played out. They went into a war right when the rapture was about to happen, or I can't remember if it was right before, right after, or right before. I think it's right before it happened, or right at that time it happened. A war broke out in Israel, and they were almost destroyed. But all of a sudden, miraculously, their enemies started getting destroyed just from like invisible, power. Psalm 83. And then Ezekiel 38 is going to happen right after they bring some kind of peace into the land. Then Ezekiel 33. Russia's already involved in some of this, so it won't be nothing for them to get involved in it. So, now you're talking Ezekiel, Gog, and Magog. So, guys, look, this has been a long video, but I think it was worth it. I hope you stayed with me this long. I think it's worth it because, the time is short, And I'll script any of this stuff, so I stutter a lot. I'm sorry, I know, but I beat around the bush. I know, but it's important that you understand something. The Bible prophecies are being fulfilled in front of our eyes. We are in the very last moments of the last days. Put your faith and trust in Christ. Don't waste any more time, because it will be at your demise. It's not gonna. I don't have anything to gain by telling you this other than, of course, there's always gain when you do something for the kingdom in heaven, of course. But that's not why I'm doing it, guys. I don't want nobody to go through this. God showed this to me. It didn't cost me any money to learn about God, and I'm not charging anybody to learn about God. That's why I don't take donations. But I just want to say this. I love each and every one of you. I don't want anything bad to happen to anyone. There's people in this world that I don't want to hang around with, that I don't associate with because of their lifestyle, things that they do. But that doesn't mean I hate them. Doesn't mean that I don't love them and that I don't want to help them. I love everybody. I don't want to see anybody go to hell, and I don't want to see anybody go through the tribulation unnecessarily. You don't have to go through this 7 years. If you put your faith and trust in Christ right now, you can avoid this. I was watching videos, and not because of entertainment purposes, but because I think everybody should see some of the atrocities that happen in Israel so they can stop trying to blame Israel for everything. Israel is doing what any normal any country would do to defend their people. If they don't do something about the Hamas situation in Gaza, Hamas is going to keep coming and killing more and more of their people. They've said it publicly that they will keep doing what they did on October 7th until Israel is destroyed. Israel can't wait around for them to fulfill that promise. They've already made good on the first one. Why would they lie about the rest? Guys, we got to pray for Israel. They're in a very tumultuous time right now, very precarious, a very delicate situation. The whole world's against them. But guess who isn't? Almighty God. Whose side you want to be on? Love y'all. I'll see you on the next video.